If you say with great power comes great responsibility, I swear I'll throw up on you.
Hello and welcome back to A Stark Contrast, where we discuss the differences and similarities from Marvel Comics to their MCU counterparts. And we are your hosts, Geoffrey
and Dai.
Welcome back, everybody,
What's
to episode 8.
Episode 8, Geoffrey. Can you imagine that we've done this for 8 episodes already?
It's been 3 months. I checked out the first date of the first recording. Yeah, it's been
That's so
3
crazy.
months.
Does it feel like 3 months, whatever that means?
No, I don't even remember what happened in April. So, yeah.
Geoffrey was just saying how it felt like forever since we last recorded.
Yeah.
But it's like we're on and off every other week.
Yeah, like we have the same schedule, but like it feels like it gets longer in between every time.
Yeah, right? It's kind of funny. Yeah, and so yeah, happy 8th episode.
Happy 8th episode. And
speaking of, okay, so I mean 8 episodes in, we're 8 episodes in. I wanted to say to you, and I blacked it out on the notes so that you didn't see it.
I saw a couple of those, yes.
my redacted notes. And so for you, my friend, we have new listeners globally.
Where?
Are you ready?
Where?
Hello to listeners in Brazil, Germany, and you're not going to believe this one, Israel.
Whoa.
Yeah. So, and I looked up the thank yous this time. So, obrigado, vielen Dank, and tuda to those listeners in Brazil, Germany, and Israel. I don't know who you are.
Thank you.
I don't know how you found us, but thank you. That's the coolest thing ever.
That is. That's really cool.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Jeez. Worldwide.
And those are the ones that we can see. So, apologies if there are other listeners across the globe that we haven't yet mentioned in previous episodes, but these are the territories that we can actually see. So there might be more, but we're just not aware of them. So if you're out there and you haven't heard us shout you out yet, please tell us, because that would be awesome to know. But that said, if you haven't yet, please, please, please remember to subscribe and rate wherever you are listening and however you can. That helps us gain visibility, kind of pushes us up on like the listening tier. If you're searching for Marvel or podcasts or anything of that nature, it would really help us out. So if you got a second, just do it. And also we have a Facebook and we only have 6 people have liked it over there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. A little more would be nice.
Oh, yeah. We need it. We need all the engagement we can get.
A little visibility. Don't hurt nobody. So if you're a Facebook person, please just look us up and give us a thumbs up. So
let's do it.
Let's do it. We have a new Patreon. So thank you for backing the show. Our newest Patreon patron is Feisty Fan. Thank you, Feisty Fan.
Thank you.
I know her name. I'm not sure if she wants me to say it. So thank you again. She is this episode's patron. And I guess we're going to get right into it.
I'm excited about this one because I absolutely have no extensive knowledge.
And so this one's another, if you're not aware, this was a listener's choice character study. And so we did the old shuffled paper in the bowl thing. And we chose, Geoffrey drew Reed Richards, who is Mr. Fantastic of Fantastic Four fame, Clint Barton, who will simply not give up, T'Challa, otherwise known as Black Panther, and Jessica Jones. And of the 4, our girl Jessica, she came out swinging. And so in that order was the line of succession as far as voters, voting for the characters came. And she kind of took it. I thought T'Challa was going to come up and just really
I thought so too.
Yeah, and so he got nearly 20 votes, and Jessica actually got 25. So, and this is across the board. This is on Patreon, on Instagram, as well as Twitter. So thank you to everybody who voted.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
And so as always, we're not experts. We're not pretending to be. So you know what? We're just a couple fans nerding out. We hope you enjoy the show. And as we mentioned, this episode, Jessica Jones.
Let's do it.
And so this isn't a particularly interesting character because the previous episodes that we have done, the characters have always come from Golden Age, Silver Age. They're from the 60s. They're from 70s. A little later, maybe. Mm-hmm. Jessica, do you even want to guess what
year she came in? I want to say... Oh, my God. I'm going to go... Oh, my God.
Come on, Jeff.
Okay. I'm just going to throw... I'm going to go like mid-2000s.
I mean, that's not far off.
Okay.
Okay, so created by Brian Michael Bendis. Let me say that again.
Okay.
Created by Brian Michael Bendis and Michael Gaydos. Jessica Jones's first appearance happened in Alias #1, which was essentially her solo title at the time, 2001.
Oh, wow.
So she is very new to like the Marvel
universe
scene.
in general, yeah.
In general. And so with Jess in particular, she came with this somewhat new branch of comic books from Marvel. And so previously and in general, a lot of titles, titles were historically under the Comics Code of Authority. And you see that like if you look at an old comic book, it's on the top left corner. It always says the code. And so that was like their rating system.
Okay.
And so it's kind of like how video games have them at the bottom left or right, whatever it is, and T for teen, and
Got it.
It's one of those things. And so in this particular era of comic books, Marvel was like, you know what? We're going to break up with that whole method. We're going to create our own rating system. And so they broke free from the Comics Code. Then they created a couple of side branches of titles. One was called Epics Comics, which was like mature. And then they created Max Marvel, which is where Alias came in and was published under.
Yep.
And these were specifically explicit, uncensored comic books for mature readers.
Okay.
And so not to say that
Makes
they
a
were
lot of
like,
sense.
yeah, not to say that they were full-fledged nudity and all that stuff. It wasn't gratuitous. It was just something for fans that could read beyond golly gee willikers and the like. And so it's kind of fitting for those of you who are familiar with Jessica Jones that she would fit under this umbrella.
Yeah.
And so, so she came in, Alias #1. Debut, she started as a solo outfit, which is pretty cool to introduce her. And that said, I'm going to start you with a pop quiz.
Okay, here we go.
But this is an easy one, sort of. It's just kind of like to kind of flesh out a little more about Jess in particular. But,
Let's do it.
So in the industry and as far as creators go in general, Brian Michael Bendis is huge in Marvel, huge in comics in general. But he is also... the creator of many iconic characters. And so, your pop quiz, Brian Michael Bendis is the co-creator of which popular spider persona? So which of these spider people did Brian Michael Bendis co-create?
All right.
Your options are Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman, Miles Morales, Spider-Man, Penny Parker, Spider from Spider-Verse with the robot, or Anya Corazon, Spider-Girl.
Oh, wow. Oh, gosh. My limited knowledge goes to Miles.
Miles. So, actually, that's correct.
Oh!
So, Brian Michael Bendis is actually the co-creator of not only Jessica Jones, but the Miles Morales that we know on screen in video games. That's his boy. That's like, that's the big one for him.
That's good.
And so it just shows like how much talent can go into such a variety of characters.
Yeah, what a
absolute
range.
So shout out to BMB because he's incredible.
Wow.
So do you remember your first exposure to Jessica Jones?
I mean, I think like a lot of people who are listening, probably the Netflix show for sure.
Yeah.
But I think I remember, was Jessica Jones the second Netflix Marvel series after Daredevil? Mm-hmm. So it came right after Daredevil, right?
Yep.
And I think it was also because like Daredevil first season was so great that when they announced another one, another Netflix Marvel series, and it was Jessica Jones, I think it drew. I think Daredevil, the rave reviews from Daredevil, it attracted enough viewers to be like, what's this Jessica Jones one about? Because Daredevil was so good. Let's see how this one is.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny that you kind of stepped right there. Like Jessica Drew, you know, and having mentioned her a couple of times at this point, this early in the podcast, Jessica Jones was actually, the backstory for her was created and intended for Jessica Drew, who is another favorite of Brian Michael Bendis's. But I think it was the superiors at Marvel were like, this story is a little dark for that character. And so he was like, I'm going to make another one. And so he made Jessica Jones.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and so they have some similarities. I mean, they're very basic, like the black hair and, you know, the strength and all that stuff. But I think people don't realize that this was all intended for Jessica Drew. But that's another story for another day.
I know. I didn't know that.
But yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned the Daredevil thing because, you know, I can't remember the order in which they announced, like whether or not they straight up said, we've casted these people beyond Daredevil.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember that too.
Right? But I knew that the second that Jessica Jones was announced, I was like, oh. And it was kind of like what we're experiencing now with Contessa and John Walker and Yelena.
Like, very dark kind of character.
No, but also like, wait, are they forming a team?
Oh, okay. Yes.
And so with Jessica Jones in particular, it was kind of like, oh wait, are they gonna cast Luke Cage? Are they gonna cast Iron Fist?
Oh, okay.
And for me, I was like, oh snap, they're gonna do Defenders. But I never thought that they would get to the point where the show actually happened. And it did, which is crazy.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, right? It's kind of one of those things. And, you know, I don't remember if we actually said this on the show before, but it was kind of like the Guardians of the Galaxy, you know, the kind of rollout where you're like, why are they doing Guardians of the Galaxy? But then it comes out and you're like, oh,
this is great.
This is
I'm
awesome.
glad they did.
Yeah. And so, I don't remember the order of announcement, but I remember just being super excited because my familiarity with the character wasn't what it is now.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Like I probably know too much about Jessica Jones now. I practically dress like her every day. God. But my first exposure to her was actually when I worked in a comic book shop.
Oh.
I worked in a comic book shop that I grew up going to. And so like when I was 8 or 9, my dad used to take me to the shop back in our hometown. And I would go in with this 101 Dalmatians wallet.
Nice.
With all my coins
Nice.
and my dollar bills that I would buy trading cards with, which are the trading cards that we actually use.
Yeah.
And the store remained open well until I was a teenager. And so one day I was like, I need a job. And they knew me well enough by that point. I'd been going there for nearly 10 years. They're like, you want a job? I was like, cool. So I was a girl working at a comic book shop.
That's insane.
Yeah. And so I think I worked there when I was like 18, maybe 18. And so I remember, and I still have it, one of the first issues with Jessica Jones that I ever bought was actually her wedding issue to Luke Cage.
Oh.
Yeah, and so I have that in my collection still to this day. But that was kind of my first exposure to her. I didn't really know anything about her other than that she was kind of an Avenger and kind of not.
Yeah.
And she was like, okay, she's strong and she's pretty badass. And that was it. That was it for me. So we've come a long way from those days. Let me tell you that.
That's crazy.
And so let's start it out. So first things first, her name is Jessica Campbell. That was her birth name. And so right off the bat, we're going to hit some crazy stark contrasts because in the MCU, from the start, she's Jessica Jones.
Yep.
And so let's go down. Let's go down the comics here. So Midtown High. Imagine Midtown High. Just imagine it. Peter Parker is running around.
Okay, yeah.
One of his classmates
was
Jessica Campbell.
Whoa.
Yeah. So immediately, like, I don't know if you can imagine Tom Holland and Kristen Ritter
That's, I mean, wow.
being in the same class at any point in time. But right off the bat, age difference is completely different there.
Yeah.
But in the comic books, you know, she actually crushed really hard on Peter Parker. Like
Okay.
Peter, like nerdy Peter Parker too. And so this is before MJ. This is before Gwen Stacy. He didn't meet them until college.
Oh, okay. So
Let's
this
just
is
get that.
all okay.
This is all before. And so tiny Peter Parker, who does not have his powers yet, Jessica Campbell is actually crushing on him. She follows him around school. She's like really into
one
him,
of those,
but
nice.
doesn't talk to him ever.
Okay. It's like a typical high school
Yeah,
like
it's a super duper
crush.
crush. Yeah, and so, so when at last, you know, the school takes that trip to the New York's Hall of Science.
Yes.
Where the inevitable like fate,
The spider bite.
bite
Yeah.
happens. That's the exact moment where she's about to talk to him for the first time and be
Oh.
like, "Hey, Peter," and he gets bitten. He runs off. She runs after him, but then just, you know, she backs off. She's like, "Okay, I'm gonna let him do his thing." She has her own issue where she almost gets hit by a car, and she's saved. And it's one of those like Acme, you know, like chemical.
Yeah.
She doesn't get hit and nothing happens, but she's like, okay, whatever, I'm going home. And it's interesting that day seems to be a catalyst for so many characters in the Marvel universe, because again, like we've mentioned in the Spider-Man episode, Cindy Moon was also one of the people who got bitten.
Yes.
Yeah, and so you think about this tiny little spider not only bit Peter Parker, bit Cindy Moon, but also indirectly kind of set the course for Jessica Jones's journey, if you will. And so I'm not sure what the time frame is, but later on, you know, a week or two later, Jess, she and her family go to a trip to Disney World, of all places, courtesy of Tony Stark. Yeah, the look that Geoffrey's giving me right now.
This is because it's so crazy to hear these crossovers in the comics.
It's nuts, right?
And then you put like the faces that you know in the MCU, and you're like,
yeah,
why would that ever happen?
Right, and because again, you know, in the Netflix show, for instance, they just throw you right into it. She had a car crash, family died, she has powers, and then now she's a PI that drinks too much.
Yeah.
But you know,
that's how I know her as just an alcoholic PI who's just solving mysteries and everything.
And so, you know, we go back to the comic book Jess, you know, so they go to this trip to Disney World. Tony Stark is actually Jess's father's boss in the comic books. And so Dave Campbell, that's his name. Dave Campbell, he gets this trip from his boss. They go off, they go do the thing, they come back. On the drive back, they actually, this is where the fated car crash happens, and they actually collided with a military convoy. And of course, the convoy was carrying chemicals, and you know, while the family died, Jess survived, and that's where her powers seem to have manifested from. So if you know anything about Daredevil and how his powers come to be, and it's a little bit of that too, you know, like there's a bit of radioactivity and chemicals involved, and his senses were just, you know, imbued with crazy sensitivity. With Jess, you know, she just manifested this entire suite of powers. And so in the books, the family dies, she goes to an orphanage, and it's called the Moore House for Wayward Children. Like, that's a mouthful for you. And so later on, she's adopted by Alyssa Jones and her husband, no name, and then she adopts her surname, and so then she becomes Jessica Jones. And so when you look at the Netflix show, you know, the interesting thing about this is that the mother and the father are both named in the show. The mother is named Alyssa Jones. Okay. So the birth mom in Netflix is the adopted mom in the comics.
Interesting.
Yeah, so they really kind of, I feel like they compressed everything that they had about her, and they fit it into this little Netflix box of like, okay, we're going to, as Yelena would say, they just went right in there and then they chopped it all up.
They saw names. They're like, okay, how can we make this name like fit her story on TV, on television?
Exactly. And so Jones is her birth name from the get-go. And instead, in the Netflix series, they give a name to the chemical company that they collided with in Netflixverse, MCU. They call it's the IGH company, which is Industrial Garments and Handling.
Yes.
There's no
There's
meaning to it otherwise. Not that I found or remember. They just call it IGH. It's supposed to be really foreboding and scary and ominous, but it is what it is. And so they kept her for about 2 weeks, and with the comics, it's more like chemical based. In Netflix, it's like she had genetic altering therapy. And so this was before my time, but I kind of associate that to like the Bionic Woman in a lot of ways. She always, when I familiarized with her, she reminded me of the Bionic Woman, and I know nothing about the Bionic Woman, but that was kind of like the vibe I was getting. She was super strong. She got it in a scientific experiment type of thing. And so that's kind of how I feel that they treated it in the Netflix show. And so, unlike the comics, like the comics, she was adopted, but unlike it, she was adopted by Dorothy Walker, who is Trish Walker's mother.
Yes.
And so, and of course, we were just talking about this before the show, but Trish Walker is Hellcat in the comics.
Yes.
She's got her own story. Whether or not we'll tell it, I mean, maybe if we go down that path of kind of picking at the sub-character, sure. But yeah, in the comic books, Trish also has powers, but they're originally attributed to like the suit that she's wearing.
Got it.
And then later manifests as like something that she actually has innately. So, but yeah, so that's Trish. So that's an interesting dynamic right off the bat, that they not only give her an immediate connection to a character that already existed.
Yes.
But they made them like sisters, and
yeah, I was confused on that too. I was like, oh, they're sisters. Okay.
Yeah. And I feel like that's a thing that Netflix tended to do in their shows, is that they really did homages, and they showed like cameos, and they amalgamated characters all the time. You know what I mean? Like they were just really, again, they were trying to fit everything in, but not all of it was forced. Like that's a pretty interesting way to kind of introduce this dynamic for the character, and also, like pay tribute to a character that existed. Yeah. Even if she wasn't written out very well. Sure. Yeah. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting, and to get to know the character through that lens was interesting. And Jessica as well, because it lended a lot to her character growth in the series. And did you watch all 3 seasons, or just?
I think I watched about like the 1.5, but then today I watched the recap, because I'm a horrible, I think I've said this before. Yeah. I'm a horrible show watcher. I'm a horrible binge watcher. I can't do it. I love that. I love when things are done weekly, episodically.
So are your Wednesdays and Fridays messed up now that there's no?
Yes. Because every day or every Tuesday going into midnight, I'd be like, I'm staying up, I'm watching this, and then that's it.
That's it. Right?
Yeah. But then when it's like with binging, with Netflix shows, it's like, well, also they're 1 hour shows, right? They were 1 hour shows. So I'm also horrible with that, because I have the attention span of a freaking fly.
TikToker.
Even worse. It was Vine.
Yeah. Oh, Vine.
I think Vine messed that up for me a lot.
I understood that reference.
Yeah. but also, I'm going deeper into it. Like I work for an ad agency, so our longest form of content, video is 30 seconds. So I can only ingest. If anything's longer than 2 minutes, I'm like, what is this?
No, it makes total sense.
So then because it was all released at the same time, it's like, ooh, I want to watch it. I want to, watch it. And it's like, so either in me, it's just like, it's either like, can I watch this in one sitting? And if I can't, or if like, do I want to watch it in one sitting? Yeah. Or it's like, okay, I can watch one. I'll watch one. And you're like, oh, I need to know how like the next one starts. So I'm going to watch it again. Yeah. So then it's like, no, I need to go. And it's just like, yeah. And I just get out of funk, and I'm just like, whatever. I'm too lazy. I'll eventually get to it, and I never do.
When I binge something, especially like now-ish, I always ask somebody who I know has seen it, and I promise you that the thing that I say the most is, do I have to be in a mood for it? Like, do I have to be in that like prep mood of like absorbing that kind of content? I agree. Yes. And I had that. One of the shows right off the bat that I have to be in the mentalities for is like Watchmen or like Handmaid's Tale. Like I have to be in a certain mentality or mode, or else it's forget it. But it's funny that you mentioned like with the Disney Plus shows, like being the midnight watcher, Netflix shows. I was the midnight watcher, but, and I mentioned this before, I would binge all of it. All night. Doesn't matter if it was an hour. Daredevil, friend and I, Andrew, on the phone, binging it. Yeah. Because this is before they had the nice little streaming like together thing. And so we would watch it.
Yeah.
All freaking day. And I remember Jessica Jones season 1. I would watch it until I had to go to work. I'd get to work.
Yeah.
And then I'd put it on in the background just so I could, because you know why though? My reasoning is spoilers. It's the same reason why I go to Thursday movies.
Yes, I think that's another reason too.
Yeah.
I think it was the opposite reason for me, where it's like because I didn't finish it all in one sitting or whatever it was. Yeah. And then and I'm such a millennial. I'm on my phone all the time. I check social media all the time. Not because like...
Are you a millennial? You made that cut?
I do, yeah.
Wow.
My sister's technically a millennial.
Yeah. I'm a millennial.
Yeah, I make the cut.
What?
Oh, thank God. Thank God.
You don't want to be a Zennial? You're a Zennial, I think.
No.
Are you sure?
I'm dead serious. I am dead serious. I will not call myself...
You didn't know what Hand the Rocks the Cradle is.
My pop culture references from that time, though, is very limited.
Okay.
But I will refuse to be called a Gen Zer because I don't think I am. Because if I do, I'd probably move somewhere and like not want to talk to anybody. Because no.
Oh my God.
And then like, yeah, because I'm always on Twitter, like especially me, like I love keeping up with a lot of things. So Twitter is like, and you never know what you're going to see on Twitter.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, cool. And then it's like, boom, spoilers. And I'm like, oh,
yeah.
Well, that happened.
Oh my gosh. And then even, and anyone who if you were to ask anybody that talks to me, especially when these movies are in production, oh man. Like even the Spider-Man stuff. Hey, did you see the Funko drop? And I'm like, yeah, reluctantly, because you just now.
I remember I always like that's why I don't. Also, this is why I don't text Dai with any like Twitter things that I may have seen. Yeah. And so I'm like, Dai probably doesn't want to see it.
Wait for me to groan about it because it always happens. Because then I'll be like, oh yeah, I saw it. Right. Oh man, I saw it. Like, and I like to stay pure. And the toys now you can't even trust looking at a page of like Funko Pops because it's all there.
Everybody's a freaking detective, man. Everybody wants to know something.
Right. Everybody's a sleuth.
So
you did. Okay, that's interesting. So you didn't touch season 3, basically. You didn't. You kind of pieced out halfway through 2.
Because I watched the recap then I was like, oh yeah, I don't remember any of this.
Well, you know what's funny? Because I watched it all, and I too watched the season 2 recap, and I was like, I don't remember most of this. And those were just her quips. But season 2, like, I mean, we might talk about it a little later, but season 2 was a bit difficult because they did this very ambitious thing where they had different directors for each and every single episode.
Ooh.
Yeah, and so I understand what they were trying to accomplish, and I definitely appreciate it. But it's not, I feel like, whereas like with The Mandalorian, for instance. I
was going to say, yes, I was going to bring them up.
They had like with solid 3 or 4.
4 for sure.
4 directors for the entire season.
Yeah.
And they all traded off on and on.
They were all on set for each episode they directed.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what the approach was for Jessica Jones season 2, but I feel like that had a lot to do with it. And maybe they tried to, I don't know. But anyway,
that makes sense. That does make a lot of sense.
It's interesting.
I keep trying to remember why, like how was I able to watch
season 1
like all the way through?
I'm telling you, it's a Daredevil effect.
That too. I was thinking I was going to go back to Daredevil because Daredevil was just so good.
But you know what? We're going to get into the powers, which leads into another direct correlation, and I think that's my theory for why you got through season 1.
Yeah.
So, speaking of just being a modern character, as a result, I have no trading cards of her. Period. Yeah. And so what I do have is a digital trading card.
Nice.
So of course, because it's 2021, Topps, which is a tremendous player in the card collecting game, they have a digital app version of card collecting, and so I have the Marvel one. And so I do have a couple of Jessica Jones cards, and thankfully one of them actually has a small bio on the back. So I'm going to read that before we dive into her powers. And so the card states, experimental chemicals gave Jessica Jones superior strength, flight capabilities, and the ability to block mind control. She's a skilled detective and journalist and has been a part of the New Avengers, Defenders, and other groups. Super short, straight to the point.
Interesting. I think what stood out to me was she's able to stop mind control.
So that's an interesting part of this card because I guess you could say it's partially true in the comics.
Okay.
The story is much more fleshed out than that.
Uh-huh.
And again, has to do with the direct correlation of my theory of why you enjoyed season 1. So what I have noted, okay, comic book version, like I just read, plus, more or less superhuman power, strength, durability, and flight. In the MCU version, she's got enhanced physical abilities.
Okay.
So right off the bat, she's not necessarily superhuman, but she's enhanced to the point where she can endure better than she would. I don't think she's nearly as strong as she is in the books.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it. So you think how she's portrayed in the Netflix show, it's not her truest potential.
No, not at all.
You think they can go bigger with her?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I feel like in the comic book version, she could, without dropping a bead of sweat out of her brow, could lift up a car with one hand and be like, cool. Whereas in Netflix MCU, she's like, I can slow down a car and I can pick it up at the bumper, but that's it. Which is interesting. And but that kind of, I think that plays into the fact that, again, comic book had chemical activity and then radioactive chemicals, and then MCU is like, oh, well, a company futzed around with her DNA and boom.
Yeah.
So it's a little different. And so it yielded different results in a way. And so she actually has a super fake name persona in the comic books.
Okay.
She did very briefly. She went as Jewel.
Nice.
And they actually worked it into the script for Jessica Jones, where there is this montage where Jess and Trish is showing her all these like superhero costumes that she could possibly wear.
Yes.
And one of them is actually Jewel's outfit
from the comics.
And it's this white like bodysuit with strapless bodysuit with like light blue accents and like a big pink jewel on the side. Nobody knows why she chose the name Jewel. I have a theory that maybe it's a play on like she's tough as nails and she's a jewel. Yeah,
okay.
Like she's like a diamond, but diamond is more of an Emma Frost White Queen thing. Jewel is like, playful, fun, whatever. And so, believe it or not, she was actually inspired. So we're going to take it back to teen Jessica Jones for a second. So you got to remember, Peter Parker became Spider-Man at 15.
Yeah.
And so Jessica Jones at that same age was exposed to Spider-Man.
Okay.
And so after she has the accident, which occurs in high school, she's then inspired by Spider-Man to use her powers for good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so time passes. This is kind of where you start to see Jess go down the darker path of just depression and post-traumatic and all that. But she becomes Jewel and for 4 years, I believe. And this, during this time, she's fighting alongside Earth's mightiest heroes. And so she's among the Avengers. She's not as well known because, like the news cameras are all focusing on Captain Marvel and, on Scarlet Witch and the bigger names. She was kind of like the B-rated.
Sure.
Thing.
Yeah.
Nobody really cared. Sad to say. But in this time as a superhero, this is where she encounters Zebediah Kilgrave, known as the Purple Man. And so him.
Okay.
And this is who I think is why you enjoyed season 1.
I was gonna bring that up.
because he's so compelling too.
He's a great villain.
As an incredible character, and also, so beautifully, sadly beautifully portrayed.
Yeah, because as I was watching the recap, and I was especially the season 1 recap, it was going, whatever it was, going by. I was just like, oh, like, yeah, like this was like great. Like, this is like, how do you stop? I think this is why I was so intrigued with this first season. Is like, I'm very invested with a villain that's just kind of like, how do you stop them within this realm of the show and the rules that they've established in the show? It's like, you have this villain, you have Jessica Jones, who's strong, fast. She's all these things. She's a superhero. And then you have this villain who's just the most normal looking of guy, but he can make anyone do anything just by saying it. Yeah. It's like the whole argument of like, what happens when an immovable object meets an unstoppable force, and you're like, who wins? Yeah. And then so it's like, so I remember watching it, and he was just like, that guy, he would be in trouble, and he would just be like, he would walk into a house and be like, hey, XYZ, and you're like, oh yeah, sure, come, yeah. And I'm like,
it's like the
Jedi. How do you stop that?
It's the Jedi mind trick.
Yeah, he literally just like says like, hey, I need your car, and it's like, oh my God, yes, I'm so sorry.
Oh, here are my keys.
He's like, oh my God, I need $5 million, and it's like, oh my God, yes, here, let me just withdraw it for you, and it's like,
the powers of persuasion.
Like, so I remember watching how visceral that first 2 episodes were when they were trying to save that girl that was like that he was dating. Yeah. And he's like, oh my God, yes, we found her. And then she goes into the elevator and she just murders.
Pop.
And I was just like, I think that's why. I was like, how do you stop that? Like, there's like, at that point, you're like, no, there's no way. Like,
it's of course, Purple Man in the MCU. I'm just going to say MCU. Netflix, we don't talk about Netflix.
Sure, it's MCU.
So in the MCU, David Tennant beautifully portrays Purple Man. Beautifully portrays. Like, I'm talking like, I'm going to go out and say it. Tom Hiddleston is Loki. Like, he plays him so well, and you hate it because you detest him.
Yes.
And he plays it so magnificently. And so the interesting thing about Purple Man, I don't remember how they explained it in the MCU, like how his powers were like conjured, how were they conjured? I'm assuming it kind of has a thing to do with the pheromones, which is interesting because you see that with Dreykov in Black Widow.
Yeah.
But it's definitely got a thing to do with pheromones. But in the comics, it's kind of like he produces it's so gross. It's scientifically nasty. He produces this like viral like thing that you can't detect, and it seeps into your brain, and then the persuasion.
And that was in the recap. The season I remember seeing that in the I remember seeing that in the recap where it's just like she met up with his parents, and it's like oh yeah, he's spreading like it's a virus that's in him.
Yeah, and it's quite literal. It's a literal virus. It's like, I mean, the timing is wow, but it's like kind of like COVID where it's undetectable. Like you can't, you have no idea.
That's so wild.
Yeah, and so
kind of scary.
The fact that he's able to do these things, and that's why I think you were so into season 1, like much like many people probably were, and that's why when they got to season 2, it dipped significantly because you lost a huge element of that character and of Jess, in her story. That was the Purple Man, and everybody kind of has their main foe. Like Spider-Man's got Green Goblin, Daredevil's got the Kingpin,
Yeah.
Purple Man
is Jessica Jones. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm gonna go one level deeper, which is because I love like shows that have like what keeps you encapsulated into the show is like having a great villain. That's why I was so invested.
Yeah.
And then obviously it dips off a little bit because he was technically dead, but like his spirit was there, but you don't see that until like the end of season 2 when the purple kind of glow comes back.
Yeah.
I'm going to go a level deeper of why I love the show Sherlock so much. You ever watch that? The BBC with Benedict?
No.
Which is the deeper level because that's Benedict's show, and which is why I fell in love with Benedict Cumberbatch.
Right. I that's what I hear is that he's
that
incredible
show.
on it,
so the BBC shows that show.
And Dancy is the other guy.
Daniel Freeman.
Oh, it's Daniel. Oh, wow. What am I thinking?
Daniel Freeman.
Just kidding.
Is that his name, right? Or Martin Freeman. Martin Freeman.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. In that show, it's 3 seasons. Also, BBC shows, like episodic shows, they're an hour and a half. They're 90 minutes. And I was like, but each episode,
Movies. Yeah.
I was engaged every single
Interesting.
episode. And I was like, why is this so good? And like this memory popped up on my Facebook memories a couple, like, I don't know if it was months ago. The main villain of Sherlock is Moriarty. And he has always played a hand in each season, whether it was physically or but he was always like either one step ahead of Sherlock or Sherlock, either behind or ahead. But I was like, why is this show so, well, one is also the writing and how they solve everything, and how Sherlock solves everything. But it was that the underlying like just presence of Moriarty and how he always played a role in each season. Even though there was a different main villain, his presence throughout the 3 seasons, I think, it was just, I was like, oh my God, this show is so good. And I watched all 3. I was obsessed. I was like, how do I watch this? And it was on Netflix at some point. So I was like, I was engaged the whole way. Yeah.
Interesting. So yeah, that sounds a lot like Purple
and much
Man.
like Daredevil with Kingpin.
With Kingpin, yeah.
Because like that dynamic was great because Vincent D'Onofrio was amazing.
He is incredible.
Yeah.
He's an incredible character actor.
And I think just when there's like that small bit of like, oh, you don't know if the hero's gonna win in this situation. Especially
with someone like Purple Man.
Yeah,
Because,
I love that because, obviously hero does always prevail, and that's obviously how you write a great story is, but you need conflict, and the moment you think the villain might win, like then you got a good story. Yeah. And then that's why Thanos is such a great villain because he won. He won. And you're like, oh. Like, everybody was like, he did it. He did it. Like half of everybody is dead. Yeah. And so you're like, okay, this guy's kind of scary. Yeah. And then now you have the setup with Loki, and then you have the setup of He Who Remains, even though it's technically Kang. But off that, just even the season finale of Loki, you understand like this guy's a threat. Yeah. Like we don't know. This is only just one of him. There's infinite amounts of him. Yeah. So I think it's just having like a great, well-written villain to where it's just like, when you think they're going to win, that's when you know you've got a really compelling story.
Yeah. And the fact that they threaded him throughout the 3 seasons and actually brought him back in so many words in the final season or 3rd season, I thought that was an interesting twist because yes, he seemed so omnipresent, but he wasn't as fleshed out as he could have been in season 2. He really did take the back burner for that. And I know that alone, it made the show suffer because not only did he take his fans with him, but people were like, "Where's Purple Man at?"
Yeah, and then you have like the different directors thing. And like maybe they're just trying to tell a different story. Yeah, each episode. And
so to kind of stay on course with Kilgrave in particular, in the books it's very similar in that he used Jess as a weapon for himself, and we get flecks of those that storyline, and it's peppered throughout. Especially season 1, and you see like the dinner, like he used to dress her up, and the house thing, and so all of these facets are directly pulled. They're not the same situations, but
even tying it in with like when she was under his control, like she killed Luke Cage's wife, and I was like, whoa. I think that too. I was like, whoa, that's messed up. Yeah. So that was crazy.
Much darker. And so the interesting thing about the comic book version of Jess is that, trigger warning, like he's a walking trigger warning, honestly. In the books, he does abuse her every way you can imagine. Yeah. But there's something akin to she's in there somewhere and he's just straight up controlling her the entire time. And so it went as far as that he sent her to take out the Avengers.
Crazy.
And you got to think the woman is strong. She's got durability for days. She can fly.
And she can't break that until her job is done.
Yeah. And it's like weirdly kind of like a Winter Soldier situation. Yeah. And so thankfully, she was sent in to kill Daredevil of all people. There's like a scenario where she goes after Scarlet Witch and there's this big old battle and she straight up punches Wanda, knocks her out.
Jeez.
It's over. Like Scarlet Witch, she punched the Scarlet Witch and she didn't even like flinch, and she's just like, okay, boom, got the job done. And so he actually sent her, like many of the dynamics in these books, like, with Hawkeye and Black Widow, for instance, she was sent to kill Daredevil. Thankfully, Carol stopped her from doing so. Mm-hmm. And then, of all people, they brought in Jean Grey.
Wow.
Yeah, you didn't think I was going to drop that name,
powerful.
huh?
That's powerful. Yeah.
So they drop in Jean Grey to put in that telepathic block so that he can't
control her.
And so she's got that. It's locked in. That's part of her psyche now. Thankfully. And so that's why it would have been such an interesting facet for her. Of course, that's bigger picture. It could never happen in our lifetime.
Yeah.
But imagining all of these characters coming together and seeing that scenario in your head, you're like, holy crap, that could have been incredible. But it's okay, because we still got a really good story out of it.
Yeah.
And so, after, the Kilgrave scenario or, arc, ends, this is when the Jessica Jones that everybody is familiar with sets in. So after Kilgrave and the post-traumatic,
relationship,
all this devastation sets in, she realizes, like, when I was in a coma as a high schooler, nobody cared about me. When I was a superhero, nobody cared about me. When I was gone, so she went missing during the Kilgrave thing. She was missing for like 8 months. Nobody looked for her. Nobody. They just thought she took off, that it was one of those things, And so when she comes out of it and she comes back to terms with being a person, she's like, F all of this. She's like, this is when the Jameson bottle, the Jack Daniels bottle comes in, the leather jacket goes on. Yeah. She officially does not give a flying about anything.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And so her downfall, I wouldn't even call it a downfall, but her awakening as the superhero that we know her as, all comes because of everything that came before, which is interesting because it's like, I haven't seen, this is probably a poo-poo on me, but I haven't seen the Birdman movie. Have you? Was it Birdman?
Yeah. With Michael Keaton.
With Michael Keaton and Emma Stone.
And Edward Norton, yeah.
Yeah, I've not seen it, but I understand that it's kind of like a scenario where he used to be a superhero and now he's like living life after that.
Yes.
That whole thing. I kind of, that's, and I probably am going to watch it now after this episode.
It's a trip of a movie. I have to, now thinking about it, I have to rewatch it again.
Is there a similarity with that scenario? Where
I forget how the movie ends, but like, yes, Michael Keaton was this
celebrated.
This celebrated either hero or former celebrity personality. And he's just like, and apparently like the whole movie is like his just like, his psyche.
Right.
Like he's like, oh, I'm still this person. But then at the end, he comes to a self-realization of like, oh, I don't think I am this person, but I'll always have that persona be part of me.
Oh, interesting.
I think, I have to rewatch that movie. Wow.
Yeah. And so, this is like essentially just reconciling with the idea that, being a superhero was not for her. It just wasn't. She has the power. She has all the stuff. It doesn't work for her. It works for Spider-Man. It works for everybody else, not Jessica Jones. So she resigns the Jewel thing. She's like, I'm not on a team anymore. I'm going to open up an investigation clinic, like where people can come in.
Oh, wow.
They want me to find pictures, take pictures of their spouse cheating on them. Cool. Like that's her thing.
That's directly from the comics to the show.
Yeah, she takes on like completely mundane, normal human problems. I mean, some of them are obviously like supernatural in some way, because who could help it? If you a superhero and you're like, I need to get a job done that only one of them can do, I'm gonna go to one of them. And so she takes them on, of course, but that's how that just comes to be, and
that's
it's
crazy.
A sad road because she goes through this really traumatic experience. And for me, it was interesting to kind of read through because a lot of the Kilgrave stuff was drawn by an artist named Mark Bagley. And so he actually drew Ultimate Spider-Man. And so to me, his art form, his style is like, it's more young adult to me. And so to see these very adult situations happen in that way, it was just very interesting. I don't know. It made me feel different. It kind of made it complex for me. I was like, this seems like it should be a young adult book or like a teen book, but it was very much.
But it's going another direction.
Oh, it was completely like Max status, you know. And so
that's interesting.
Yeah. And so with that, speaking of booze, I have a pop quiz for you.
Ooh, wow.
And so, yeah, this one's pretty funny. In 2015, Forbes wrote an article that was essentially they watched and reviewed the entire season 1 of Jessica Jones.
This show came out in 2015?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Can you imagine it's been that long? It's been that long.
Yeah, that's wild. Oh my God.
6 years. So she's already, and we were just talking about the 10-year mark for so many of these characters. She's already gotten 6 years.
I felt like that group of shows on Netflix, I felt like that was only like 3 years ago.
No, but 2 of the years have been spent in limbo.
Yes.
Just waiting for that contract to end so that they could come back home.
Yeah.
6 years.
Okay.
And so in 2015, Forbes wrote an article about how much booze does Jessica
drink.
How much does she spend? Wow. Not even that. How much does she spend on booze in season 1? And so I believe that Forbes went as far as to note what label, what size, everything.
How fitting. I just came back from Vegas.
Just for you.
Probably drank the same amount.
Okay, so you have to take in consideration, this is season 1. So in the entire
this is just season 1.
Just season 1.
Okay.
On camera.
Yeah.
Of these 4 choices, how much did Jessica Jones spend on booze in season 1? Did she spend $2,000?
Okay.
$5,000?
Okay.
$665?
Oh wow.
Or $430?
Wow, that's such a left field of choices.
Yeah. Had to mix it.
I feel like those 2 triple figure ones are trying to throw me off.
Okay.
Like, no way, because I remember her drinking like. So they're accounting only.
They're accounting only on screen.
Like what she drank, or like the bottles you see.
The bottles you see.
Okay, so they're counting the price of like those bottles.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. That is very what an article.
I know. First of all, what a research study for an article.
On Forbes.
It's like, oh my gosh, I guess I gotta watch this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There were, from what I remember seeing, they were like 750 milliliter bottles.
Okay.
Like the regular average bottles, not like the 1.75 like liter like that. She can drink, but that's dramatic.
Yeah.
But I know it was multiple bottles depending. Okay. Oh my gosh, that was a long time ago. I want to say A.
$2,000.
And what was the second choice? It was $4,000, right? $5,000. Oh.
I can hear everybody at home listening to this being like, $5,000.
But thinking about it, that's $5,000 is a lot.
That's a lot.
Of, like bottles.
Booze.
The average bottle. Let's use Jameson as an example. 750 milliliters. The average bottle of that will range between $30 to $40.
Okay.
So if you're telling me,
wow, they're really $30 to $40.
Yeah, they're
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even if it was the 1.75 liter bottle, it would be like upwards of 60 to 70 maybe.
Okay.
So so it's like.
So
you're telling me if she would have drank $5,000 worth, that's like a lot of on-screen bottle time just in general.
Right. And there's no product placement in this show. Yeah. Except for the Acer.
So now that I broke down the math, now I'm like, wait, maybe.
You psyched yourself out, bro.
I know. Maybe it is C or D.
Okay.
But 2,000 is like a nice little medium because, she does drink. She's an alcoholic for a reason.
I love how invested you get into these.
If one of my friends listens, be like, of course, Geoffrey is getting this detailed with alcohol.
Oh my God, right down to the liters.
Oh God.
Final answer.
I'll say I will go with 2,000.
$2,000.
$2,000.
Jessica Jones drank $2,000 worth of liquor in season 1.
Yes.
According to Forbes, Jessica Jones enjoyed $664 worth of on-screen views. So good choice, good shot. Like honestly, because when I was looking at when I was reading the article, I was like, that's it. Because it
doesn't sound like that much.
When you break it down and all this stuff, I'm like, okay, maybe.
In Vegas, that's half a bottle right there.
Yeah, without table service.
Exactly.
And so the interesting thing about that, and this honestly does have some actual importance in this episode, actually, because Jessica Jones, contrary to popular belief, it takes her a gigantic amount of alcohol to get tipsy.
Yes, that was another thing that was like I was putting into factor too, because I think of Cap.
Yep.
He literally he cannot
get drunk.
He cannot at all. His metabolism. I was like, wow. First of all, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But it's like having a metabolism that fast.
Yeah.
So I would assume that she can drink a lot.
Exactly.
But I wouldn't think on screen it would be like $5,000 worth.
Right. Yeah. Because and it's interesting because thankfully you mentioned Cap, but another great example is Wolverine. Like homeboy, he whenever you see him drinking,
he's drinking.
He's just drinking it like it's water.
Yeah.
So he's going through 6 packs. It's not doing anything to him.
Yeah.
It doesn't do anything. Cap doesn't do anything to him. So Cap can have 6 beers, not only not get anything on his 20 pack, but also it's burning through as quickly as he's drinking it. So Jess has kind of like a similar situation where it's obviously she is not a super soldier of any sort.
Yeah.
She could call her a baby super soldier. I don't know. But she can still drink like the best of them. She could probably drink as much as Thor and start to get tipsy. Which is crazy.
It's like that scene in Avengers Age of Ultron, where Thor gives like a drink to Cap, and it's a scene with Stan Lee, and he's like, this is not the drink for mortal man.
Yes.
Like, you ever been to Omaha Beach, Blondie?
Yes, exactly.
So it's stuff like that.
Yeah, it's exactly like that.
Makes sense.
Yep. So that rolls us into love interests.
Amazing.
This one is gonna blow your mind.
I'm pretty sure it's deeper than I think.
It's incredible. And again, it's like it's all these nuances that you kind of go, oh man, I wish they explored it. But also, if Kevin Feige and the studio are really truly interested in bringing these people back,
I think they are.
I mean, they have the capacity, or at least the canvas, to kind of make some of these happen, perhaps, or at least have these characters interact. And so, we covered one already. And so this is, again, we're going to start with comic books first. We covered Peter Parker, high school.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, and since we're getting into the what if territory of things and the multiverse of things, in another title. It's actually written by one of my favorite writers, Chip Zdarsky. He's funny. He's very funny. It's called Spider-Man Life Story. She actually dated Peter after Mary Jane.
Ooh.
I said it Mary Jane. Mary Jane. Yeah. So she's actually inserted as a love interest in his adult life in that storyline. Moving on from that, she dated a dude named Clay Quartermain, who was a random SHIELD agent.
Okay.
Who actually appeared in, and I don't even know what to call this, but I mentioned it in another episode, the Nick Fury movie starring David Hasselhoff that came out in 1998.
Oh, okay.
He's randomly in that film. So he's a SHIELD agent, whatever, no big deal. They have all these, it's kind of like Cap and, Golden Girl. Like there's always these random love interests that kind of have some semblance of importance, but Clay Quartermain is kind of like that for Jess. Here's one of the big ones. In a what if issue.
Oh, okay.
Okay, this is, and the fact that, this is an example of how deep a single issue of what if could go. In this particular issue, she's joined the Avengers properly. She is of the team. She's actually working with them. She's kind of an A team. Her presence on the Avengers alone directly impacts and saves the team from not only disassembling, but completely ensures that House of M does not occur.
Interesting. Wow.
Just her being there completely derailed and split that brand. It pruned that timeline completely.
That's interesting.
And so, as a result, not only does none of that happen,
House of M
House of M
does
doesn't
not happen.
Disassembled doesn't happen. The Avengers stay together. They're great. They're golden. She marries Captain America.
Wow.
So take that one.
What a big what if of an
Kristen
issue.
Ritter
Oh my God.
and Chris Evans.
That's and preventing House of M's.
Preventing
that's
House of M.
crazy because
So no Wanda going crazy.
Is crazy.
Yeah, no more mutants. Like the mutants are fine. All of that is
Jeez.
fine just because Jessica Jones was on the Avengers.
That's dude. That should be an animated
be
what if episode right
I
there.
would be like, dang.
That'd be crazy.
Yeah. And so in that episode, in that issue in particular, they kind of show the course of how they are as a team on the field and how she saves like Cap's life, I think. And, they just bond.
Sure.
Bond. It's like how co-stars bond on set during a movie, And then inevitably they date, and then at the end of the issue, they get married.
Now I'm just like, wow, what did you do to save Wanda? That's just like crazy.
Yeah.
Because why did Wanda go crazy initially again?
Because of the children and Mephisto, and she wanted to bring the kids back.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
all
And
of
then she
that
creates
stuff.
this whole reality. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So
Wow. She prevents
Again.
that.
never underestimate your importance in someone's storyline.
That is crazy.
Right? Like, and I don't want to get deep here, but like, if you feel like texting somebody to say hi, what's up?
Oh, yeah.
Just do it.
Oh, yeah.
Because you could have this
Life
kind of
lessons,
like
for sure.
legit. I was like, wow. And so,
So that's literally a catastrophic event.
yeah, that spanned the entire Marvel universe.
That's like
Just because
Wow.
Jessica Jones was on the Avengers. Only because she was on the Avengers. And she wasn't even Jewel. She was just Jessica Jones. Crazy. And so I'm gonna teeter over into the MCU world for a hot second because
do it.
in the series, there's 3 seasons. As you imagine, there's kind of like 3 love interests, which kind of fold in here and there. I'm going to just name the lesser important ones. The first one is Oscar, who appears in season 2. He's the superintendent for the apartment building. And so, that chemistry, I was kind of like, sure, I got it, whatever. And then the 3rd season introduced Eric Geldon, who in the MCU is, like listed as an empath. And so he has like these weird powers of like reading people. And funny enough, he's actually present in the comic books. His name in the comic books is Mindwave. Totally ridiculous looking villain. Or anti-hero, but he's a full-fledged like costumed hero or villain in the books. And he also possessed like powers to the one that we see in the MCU, where he's got these empathic powers of the mind and what have you, but they don't have any. There's no connection in the comic books. They just, again, another homage to a character that exists, and they brought him in. And so before we get into the last guy that we're all familiar with, we're going to bounce back to comic book land. You're never going to believe this. Big one for her. Carol Danvers sets her up on a date with Scott Lang.
Wow.
Ant-Man.
That's-
Ant-Man. So picture in your beautiful minds Kristen Ritter
Paul Rudd.
and Paul Rudd.
I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, funny enough, they worked out. They dated for nearly a year. They were doing good. They're both kind of being weird anti-heroes, like not like vigilante almost. Like, because Scott Lang is, and we're gonna get to him. He's got some issues on his end too. But long story short, near the end of their relationship, Jess was kind of playing the field a bit
oh
with a man named Luke Cage. And
wow, what a segue.
yeah. And one day she realizes she's pregnant. Scott's like, is it mine? And she's like, no.
Damn.
And he just goes, goodbye, Jessica. And that's it.
They never see each other.
Never see each other again.
Wow.
Yeah. So Jess gets pregnant. That's it. She goes on with Luke Cage. And then they actually met earlier. So while Jewel was like her main superhero persona. She had a couple of other ones. One was Nitrous. She wore this dope like black and red outfit. It was kind of like if you put together Wolverine, Hawkeye, and I don't know. Yeah. And she had like the face mask thing.
Oh, okay.
It was pretty cool.
Okay.
Very, very small time in her superhero. Like this is, when she's kind of tumbling into the darkness. They actually met during that time, but after she got pregnant, she has the baby. They name it Danny Cage after Daniel Rand. Again, Iron Fist. Because Luke Cage and Iron Fist are best friends.
Yeah. Okay. Got
And
it.
so they eventually get married after that. And that's the issue that I have. And they've been together ever since. So they're a long-standing couple
Nice.
in the comics. Yeah, and they're still married to this day. Danny, I think, is 2 or 3, maybe 4. No more than 4. She can barely talk, I think. And of course, in the MCU, they unfortunately don't explore it very much.
Yeah, it was just like kind of like the occasional hookup kind of thing.
Yeah, which I'm kind of bummed about. They had the fling after she visits him in the bar.
Yep.
You never see it develop. They quip back and forth about it in Defenders, which you haven't seen.
I have not.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Because you get to see all 4 of them together.
All 4 of them interact and everything.
That's a different thing entirely. Yeah. But yeah, you never really get the sense that they're developing it. Although she does, they have their moments.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Where you can see that it's like they really do
There's
have a
like
connection.
some tension and connection.
Yeah, but he's dating someone else, and she's just, so Jessica Jonesy.
Yeah.
So of course, unfortunately they don't go too deep into that. But Kristen Ritter herself, I remember reading or sitting in on a panel where she says, they asked her like, hey, if you could do any Jessica Jones storyline in your returning to the role, what would you want? And she said, I want Luke and I want the baby.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was like, oh, yes. So she knows her stuff.
She will be in Ant-Man 3.
Oh my God.
Imagine.
Can you imagine?
Like that's how she gets
But
reintroduced.
then you have Hope and
Maybe it was a life before Hope. Hey.
That would, he was not exactly a straight A student. He was breaking into people's,
Maybe that
into
was the life
businesses.
before he went into jail.
Maybe. Right?
Maybe she ran with that crew.
Right?
This is just me theorizing on the spot right now.
But see, this is the kind of stuff that I like. Like again, like the multiverse and What If has really introduced this opportunity to explore these possibilities that could happen.
Yeah.
And I'll say this to the end of my days, like, Hawkeye, again, in the books does not have a family like he does in the MCU. He's married, he ends up getting married to Mockingbird. Like me, and I'm like, well, if they introduce her, maybe she was his wife before Laura. Maybe she was before everything, or maybe something happens. Maybe it has to do with the scroll, or it's a what if scenario.
You never know.
If
People did assume like that Kang was gonna make an appearance at some point on Loki, but you can never really like if you didn't read social media or if you didn't whatever, then you would have never guessed it.
Yeah.
At all.
I
I
agree.
didn't expect it.
No way.
At all. And
No
I was just
way.
like, oh,
Yeah.
he's in here.
Yeah. Well, you and I had this discussion. I was like, I think you straight up said, like, do you think they're going to show Kang? And I was like, dude, that's too big of a reveal for this first series.
Because they didn't do it in the first 2
they
series.
freaking
So why would they do a big reveal
Right.
in this one?
But that's the Marvel way. They're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, you think this is gonna happen? It's like Ralph Boner again. We were like, no way, and then it ended up being a red herring.
It was not what
and then they're like,
thought.
oh, Doctor Strange is gonna come in. And then not Doctor Strange. No Cap, none of that. And then here they go. You're like, nah, they're not gonna do Kang.
Like,
Who
no
comes in?
way.
Kang.
You never
just
know.
never
Well, technically,
know.
yeah, it's not even. It was like a different variant of
Yeah,
Kang too.
right?
So it's like
Exactly.
you never know. And then maybe let's say she does make that appearance in Ant-Man 3, and then that's the starting point
crazy.
of those characters coming back.
Yeah.
In the MCU
Oh my God.
in the sacred
And Ant-Man comes
MCU.
out after Spider-Man, so we could possibly
They started filming.
Yeah,
already.
they started filming.
They started filming.
We could possibly see Daredevil first, and then Jessica. Oh my God! Look at this! Look at us!
Look.
Who would have thought? Who would have
Not
thought?
me.
Oh God. Well, speaking of Scott Lang, I have a couple of notes that I wrote down here. So like speaking of multiverse and all that stuff. So with Scott Lang in particular, Jess, during House of M, like in that fantastical made up world, they were dating. And so like there's a scenario where I think they were regrouping, and it's Luke Cage and Spidey of all people. And he's like, oh yeah, I'll give Jess a call. And so he gives her a call, and you know, it's one of those voicemails. It's like, hey, this is Jess. And then he's like, hey, Jess. And then it's like, and Scott, we're not home right now. And he's like, oh,
yikes.
And he just puts down the phone because he finds out that they're living together. So that's them during House of M. And then in Infinity Wars, so I'm sure you're not familiar with Infinity Wars as in plural.
Yeah.
And so this is a more recent event where Gamora kills Thanos. And anyway, she folds the timescape in half on top of itself.
Jesus.
And so everything gets all meshed up. It's like a KFC bowl of mashed potatoes and corn.
Oh my God, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like a mixing of timelines instead of separating timelines?
Correct. Straight up bolded time on top of itself. And so in Infinity Wars, on one of those Earths, Jess is the fiance of Scott Banner. Do you even want to take a guess?
Is that Dr. Banner's son?
Nope.
Father?
Scott Lang, Bruce Banner,
Put together? Whoa, okay. I did not expect that.
Yeah, so that's Infinity Wars was crazy.
Whoa. So that's what happens when you just put a universe on top of a universe.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
Imagine the possibilities.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Oh.
So while on the subject, we have a question from Instagram user Andrew. Andrew is very present on this podcast.
Love it.
He asks, how would you reintroduce Jessica Jones into the MCU? Cameo? Featured in a movie?
We were just theorizing about that.
A solo movie? Or a 6 to 10 episode format, as we have seen before? Do you want to go first?
I mean, yeah, we were just talking about that literally prior to this question.
Right?
I mean, it's because of that. Yeah, it's because of that storyline. That Scott Lang storyline.
Yeah.
I feel like that makes the most sense. Maybe it is the life.
Really? I have an option. I have a
You
headcanon.
have an option?
I have
Let's hear
headcanon.
yours. Let's hear it since we already talked about.
Headcanon time. Here we go. Headcanon dance. Headcanon. IGH, right?
Yeah.
Exists. Let's just say there's IGH ends up being a hypothetical branch off of the same company responsible for not Hydra necessarily, but they too were trying to create a super soldier serum of some type.
Everyone's trying.
Everyone's trying.
Multiple
Everyone's
versions
trying.
of that serum have come up.
Let's just say it's found out that Jess is part of that program. That's how she got her powers. She's kind of like a bootlegged version of a super soldier, right? That's why she has his characteristics. And then while like she kind of gets absorbed into that world again, which is kind of similar to season 2 with her mom. Her mom like was a super
part of that.
Yeah, she was enhanced, and she was basically taking people out that were associated with that program. So say they kind of bring that back, but they drop it into the world of Falcon and Winter Soldier, or Captain America and Winter Soldier, and it kind of takes off from season 1, and it lands in the whole power broker scheme of things.
Oh, like she's part of like
she's part of it, but she's a product of that.
Oh, okay.
That's my headcanon.
That makes perfect sense too. Wow.
And then of course she marries Scott Lang and they live happily ever after. I kind of like that. Or Bucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Like, she has these powers. She's like, I don't know what to do with them, kind of thing. But she ends up in that in that lifestyle.
Right. You know, because you know how it's all. Well,
because
it's not all connected, but
yeah.
Like
what's that place called? What was the place called where the power broker lived? Where they went to?
Oh, Madripoor.
Yeah. I mean, he ends up there. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah. Be very interesting.
Yeah.
But, needless to say, she's part of the street level heroes. So
exactly,
they're
yes.
not gonna veer off into like Wanda land or, you know, with high end Avengers land. She's still gonna keep it down to the street level. And so I try to think of, well, what characters does that entail? And so that's kind of my reasoning for.
I mean, yeah, because if you were to put her into a cosmic situation, it's like black and white. It's very, very, very
Did you ever
different.
see those edits when Endgame came out and people were like editing in like the Defenders, or like the Defenders were waiting for the portal to open and nobody opened it for them? It's so sad. I was like, dang. Yeah. I mean,
that makes a lot of sense too. I mean, yeah, as soon as you told me that Scott Lang storyline, I mean, yeah, that I just went off the rails with that theory, because I was just like, because the more we said it out loud, I was like, wait, I mean, it's possible. Like, that was the life before, before Scott went to jail, and that's why he ended up in jail.
You just have to like, the only thing, you know, here we go. Let me push up my nerd glasses. Logistically speaking, you know, he would have to be in like Florida at some point, because that's where she was for a bit, and then New York, and so like, because he's in San Francisco. Yeah. And so that's the only thing. But other than that, I could see them working something into it.
And then that'd be so funny if like Kristen Ritter and Evangeline Lilly had like an interaction and be like, oh, hey.
Because, again, I think I've said this before, or maybe just to you, Hope Van Dyne does not exist in the comics.
Oh.
She's not there. There's another character that they kind of supplement the story from. Her name is Nadia. But
so she's a brand new.
She's a brand new. She's an amalgamation that actually made it to the surface. Because everybody else has a derivative, you know what I mean?
Except
like
Hope.
Hardcore derivative. Hope does not. She's not even Hope. But Nadia, I believe, if you translate it from Russian or Slavic, means hope.
Okay.
I believe that's the translation of the name.
And then they just made her the daughter of Janet, and it was like, oh,
yeah. Because not to branch off too much, but Nadia is a stepdaughter of Janet, whose dad is Hank Pym, mother is somebody. Yep. She's an escapee from the Red Room.
Wow.
Oh yeah, she's got crazy story.
That is,
and she's mentored by Wasp and Mockingbird.
That's wow.
Yeah.
Comics are crazy.
And she's a newer character too. She's a more modern character.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure people who are making that are like, okay, well, we have these. How do we make this story make sense?
You need the
whiteboard's got to look crazy over there.
It's the Charlie Day meme. And so, you know, to answer your question, Andrew, I don't know what format I would choose. That's the difficult part, because we have seen three seasons of Jessica Jones. We have seen how many? Oh my gosh! So if we're talking 13 episodes times 3, that's a lot, and they're an hour long each.
Yeah, and he's asking how would
what format would you even want?
Just what format?
Yeah, would you want
after they reintroduce, or how would they reintroduce her?
If we reintroduce her.
I would definitely want to reintroduce her as a cameo in a movie first.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
End credit.
Either end credits, or if it's like 1-2 minutes in a scene of like whatever movie, however her timeline or story connects to someone that in a future movie.
I'm just imagining somebody walking down that hallway, knocking on the door, like looking like, hey, I need a PI, and she's like, what the hell do you want?
Yeah.
Like I can see it so clearly.
Yeah, if someone needs a lawyer, Spider-Man, if someone needs a lawyer, who are they gonna go? They're going to Daredevil. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
If someone needs a PI who can handle a little bit villains that are a little bit, stronger, boom, her in city, whatever.
I like that though.
But yeah, I would, because I love seeing them, because now you're planning the mind, and I know a lot of fans are like, oh my gosh, we did not get enough of XYZ of this year, and it's like, yeah, because they want to gauge of like, okay, how did they respond to it?
Yeah.
And so that's why I hate when people sometimes say they're like, oh, they did not they ruined that person's potential.
Yeah, I saw
and it's
that
just
a lot.
like, and it's like, dude, you never know. Like plant that idea, see how the fans react, and then boom. And if there's enough interest, they're like, all right, cool. You'll be able to be like, let's green light. Yeah. Let's maybe give her a series, but in the Disney Plus Marvel like
So it's
format.
a short 6 to 8.
And it's probably like and the Disney Plus shows are like 40 minutes, 45 minutes. And if you get the right filmmakers and writers and showrunners, they can do it. And it's Feige. If Feige's overseeing it, I have a lot of faith.
Right. Yeah. And so, to Kristen Ritter's like wishes, I could also see a Disney Plus format short form series where it does take off, where you kind of get the established, you already kind of know who she is.
It's true, you do.
And then you fast forward a bit into the series and she, after possibly a cameo, and she's married to Luke, whoever that casting may be, because they haven't said that they wanted to bring Michael Coulter back, and then she has the baby. And then they could because despite these situations where they don't think that a superhero can be a mother and a hero at the same time, they've kind of had this in the books for a long time, where it's just like they just fast forward and make the baby big because they don't want to go through that journey.
WandaVision, you mean?
Like there's this whole thing with Jessica Drew, in fact, where when they revived her for a solo series, they made her pregnant and she was fighting crime pregnant.
Jeez.
And so they had never done that before. Like the last time I remember even seeing a child in the books or a woman pregnant in the books before Jessica Jones was Jean Grey.
Oh, wow.
And now we're talking 80s, 70s, 80s maybe, And even then, I don't think you saw her pregnant. Like Jessica Jones, when she's in Young Avengers too for a bit, and that's an interesting link to Scott Lang because his daughter is in that team, and Kate Bishop and all of them, all of the children in that team. She was very pregnant with Danny during that storyline, and so like you don't really see these stories until these two Jessicas came along, and so to kind of fast forward it for her and then bring a show where the kid isn't necessarily a plot point, but she's there and present. Be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Showing the motherly version.
I really do hope they make a comeback. Those
Me too.
3.
Yeah.
I like those. Daredevil, Luke Cage, and
Daredevil, Luke Cage, and Jess.
Yeah.
So you didn't care for Punisher much?
Oh, Punisher too. I was thinking
So you're
Iron
like
Fist.
everybody but Iron Fist is what you're saying.
Just because from what I saw, I was just like, poor guy.
Well, I mean, I digress.
But it's not his fault.
Yeah,
it's not his fault.
No, but watch Defenders maybe. Just check out Defenders. Maybe you'll feel a little different. Because he's at least more like he understands his power by then. So here we go. Favorite portion of the show almost was. Dun, dun,
I was like thinking about this. I was like, I think this is gonna be the first one where I'm like, nope.
I'll be honest.
Nope. I don't know.
I didn't think anyone else had even auditioned for this. I had no you don't hear about it, none of that stuff. But I found people who actually tested, and she was, believe it or not, Kristen Ritter was not even first choice.
They never are. The people you see them portray are never the first choice.
Even fathom anybody else. And I will say this, that when they first casted Kristen, and I remembered her from Breaking Bad and how great she was on that show. Not that the show wasn't amazing on its own, but she was so hateable and wonderful in that show. I was like, man, it's that girl? That's going to be crazy. But the big thing for me as a comic book fan, I was like, she doesn't quite look like Jessica. Like, I almost thought that she was, she was so unique looking. And, anybody who's seen Kristen Ritter, she's got unique features where, she, the nose, and she's got a beautiful face. And Jess in the comics was actually brunette. Very brunette and very plain Jane, not, anything in particular. But so to see someone like Kristen Ritter portray her so perfectly, that she had kind of like the Star-Lord effect, where in the books, they changed her up. They made her look more like Kristen, at least in the aesthetic sense. So now she has black hair. Now she looks more like she wears the skinny jeans and boots
the
rather
jacket.
than just normal jeans and like
it.
sandals,
Okay.
And so it's interesting how they've kind of changed up the character since her debut, but her Netflix debut. But to see the short list of actresses who actually...
Let's hear it.
So first one, and I believe she almost got it. Alexandra Daddario Are you familiar with her?
Oh, Alexander.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the newer ones.
Oh, okay.
Yes. She's got the dark hair,
Interesting.
blue eyes.
Okay.
She is an interesting candidate, if only because I almost, like in some respects, I could see her being Jessica Drew for Spider-Woman. But even then, like, what's her name? Khaleesi from Game of Thrones.
Yes.
She's cast in Secret Invasion, and people are speculating.
Emilia Clarke.
Emilia Clarke. Gosh, forgive me, my queen. People are speculating that she is Jessica Drew. That she has been casted as Jessica Drew. I'm not sure what the licensing hold Sony has on her, because she's technically a spider. And technically they have all the spiders.
Spider IPs, okay.
I don't know.
We'll
I
see.
don't know where she sits.
I think that starts filming soon too.
Yeah. So
Gosh.
so Alexandra Daddario was one of the very first. Teresa Palmer. Are you familiar with Tez Palmer?
Name sounds familiar. If I see
blonde,
a face.
Yeah, blonde. I think she's Aussie. Blonde hair, blue eyes. She's a great actress. She's kind of more known for like smaller, almost indie films.
Okay.
Warm Bodies, if you ever saw that one.
Heard of it?
Yeah,
Haven't.
she's the lead in that one. She's great too. I can't quite see her as Jessica Jones. I don't know where she came from, but that's pretty cool. And then the last one is Jessica DeGao. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that last name right. She is actually, interestingly enough, she portrays Helena Bartonelli, who is Huntress on the Arrow show.
Oh, okay.
Who is my favorite DC character.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And she's basically Mary Winstead in Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey.
Ooh, okay.
That's the same character.
Oh.
So yeah, well, I mean, she's a little different in the DCEU, but Jessica DeGao plays her on Arrow, and I could see that too. She looks very similar. She's kind of the Alexandra Daddario sort.
Okay.
I could see her being Jess as well, but I'm glad that they picked Kristen Ritter because that's who got it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
You never, the person who actually portrays him, never the first people to audition for it or get thought of.
Yeah. And so for the cool item, I was trying to find my premiere passes from, and I had mentioned this during the Black Widow episode. Marvel tends to invite folks to these screenings, and so I had a streak going for a while. I got invited to the Daredevil season 1 premiere. Oof. And then we got to go to the panel at New York Comic Con for Jessica Jones season 1. So we actually watched the first episode like a month before it even came out there.
Oof. Whoa.
And then I got to go to, I think, Jessica Jones season 2 and 3 premiere, Punisher, and I think that was it. But so I couldn't find it. Long story short, I couldn't find it. But I did find, I was like, I got a lot of other stuff. I don't have to look for like premiere stuff.
This is a big binder of stuff.
I have a portfolio folder in front of me. And so this is where a lot of my prints and other things are. Geoffrey's never seen this before. So I found my Daredevil one because this one's very special to me.
Yeah.
So like I tend to buy like prints that aren't common as well as, art prints, of course. And they're always signed by my favorite artists. So for instance, there's one of Catwoman and Batman by Olivier Coipel. And I've got some hiding in between.
Yeah.
Spider-Gwen by Rico. And this was actually, by Joe Quesada. It's the Daredevil Season 2 promo. Uh-huh. And so these kinds of posters were only available at Comic-Con.
At those events, yeah.
And you had to be at the table at the right time.
Because they go out quickly.
Yeah, they only made so many for the weekend or the day. You got them, you didn't. And so I got the Jessica Jones one, of course. And this one is based off of Kristen Ritter by Alex Maleev. And he's incredible Daredevil artist. But what I wanted to show you in particular is that because, I'm that kind of collector, beyond these things I have, I tend to get commissions. And so I get original art by notable artists. And so speaking of Alex, these are 2 of his, a Black Cat and a Daredevil.
Oh my gosh.
But I have a couple of Jessica Joneses. So this big one is a Jessica Jones by Alex Maleev, again, that I got in 2018. And so he's a watercolorist. It's kind of funny. People are like, "It looks like you as Jessica Jones." It's like, no, it doesn't. But he's funny.
Crazy.
He's great. And so it's an original. And so of course these are like ridiculously priced because he's a notable artist.
Yeah.
And then I have a sketch by David Marquez who did the Defenders title, which is the more modern look of Jessica with the dark hair and such. And so he, a lot of these artists do warm-ups. And so he does a lot of warm-ups before he actually draws for books.
Like an actual thing. Okay,
And so
that's one of the
then he sells the warm-ups.
Oh my gosh!
And so
wow.
actually I got a Star-Lord from him. It's the one underneath.
Yeah.
And then I asked him for Jessica Jones. And so he got a Jessica Jones.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So that's my
blows
cool item.
my mind
So
how
I'm gonna post
artistic people are.
Yeah.
I could never.
It's so incredible, right? Like, oh man, that's a lot of pressure too. Like somebody's like, I want a drawing. And you're like, cool. I'm going to charge you 3 digits and then I'll give it to you in 4 hours. And then
That's a lot.
You got to perform.
Yeah.
If you want to talk prices.
Yeah.
Alex's. So for this is a simple watercolor.
That's simple.
Yeah.
Dude, I can't even keep paint inside of a circle. Dude.
So for Alex, I think this is an 11. No, I want to say this is like a 17 by 24 or something. 12 by
That's
17.
Yeah.
Sure, 11 by
yeah.
17. And then paper is a thing, Bristol paper and all that.
100%. Yeah, high quality paper.
I think this, gosh, I hope my parents don't listen to this. This was probably.
Can I guess?
Yeah. Yes. For a commission.
For a commission.
A very notable Defenders Daredevil artist.
Oh my gosh. How much was that sketch?
So the Marquez sketch, I believe these range between...
You said 3 figures. That's right. Okay.
This one, yes. The Marquez, I would say this is range from 50 to 100.
Okay.
And this is a sketch, quote unquote.
Yeah.
A
so
sketch.
this is 3 figures for sure.
This is 3 figures.
Yeah.
How much is the Alex Millif?
Oh, I want to go above the 500 scale.
Oh, really?
I mean, I like rewarding people for their work. If they told me a price and I'd be like, you're good at what you do.
Yeah. This one in particular was $375.
Okay. For some reason, I don't think that's bad.
It's not.
Yeah.
It really isn't if you think about who's drawing it.
Yeah.
And also, again, like,
it's a
freaking watercolor.
People need to understand, if you think you can do this,
no.
Think again. No.
And so seamlessly and just it's
it
gorgeous.
just works.
The
colors
right?
work. Exactly.
And of course, different
crazy.
artists can charge different amounts.
Sure.
Depending
on notoriety, I guess.
Like this, this is a Valero Shitty, Peter Quill.
Okay.
And I think that one was 175 or 200.
Okay.
But the detail on that is incredible, right?
That one looks insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, the shadows
incredible.
on that.
He's incredible. He's an incredible artist. And so depending on the artist, they can charge however much they want. But Alex in particular, he will do, you ask him for 24 by 36, he's like, great, give me the weekend. And he'll do it.
That's kind of crazy.
Full color, full everything, and then it'll look like one of those posters. But he will charge you $1,000.
$1,000, yeah.
But my goodness.
Yeah.
It's
you get paid. You pay them for what they're experts in.
And the best part about these in particular is that they're one of a kind.
Yeah.
So nobody else gets them.
No one else will ever see something like that.
Nope.
That's crazy.
And I've circulated a few pieces every now and then. If I'm kind of I could part with this one, and then I just reinvest it. So I've sold a Kevin Wada before, which is poo-poo on me because he's great, and now he's hard to get. But I got he did I asked him for Spider-Gwen. It was his very first Spider-Gwen he'd ever drawn. And it was right when she came out. And I was like, do me a Spider-Gwen. He's like, cool. And he did it. And then I was like, I'm going to part with it. So I sold it last year.
Oh, man.
But I do want to get another one from him eventually, one day, hopefully, if he
is available.
If he's available, yeah, he's too big now. But yeah, so that's my big Jess Jones. And so I have a bunch of stuff in here. Yeah, so I guess that's the end of the show.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Wow. We talked an hour and a half.
Hey.
On Jessica Jones.
Jessica Jones. And, again, she has room to grow. She has room to come back. Yeah. Knocking on wood.
I mean, there is a reason, like when that that's what I'm looking forward to, because when that Netflix contract ended for them,
oh my gosh,
you really hope that's like, okay, you really hope like Feige is gonna like
pull it through, man,
bring them back in some capacity. Because I know he said he had like the Marvel Studios plan for at least the next 5 to 7 years already, and it's like
crazy. And that was then, you know, like, or at the time.
And that was before the pandemic too. And then now they have to kind of jam pack it.
Yeah.
and get back on schedule,
which is incredible. And that's a feat, you know, like holy cannoli.
And then now you're introducing, now that these like the Disney Plus shows are killing it. Like, I don't think Disney Plus has missed on these Marvel shows.
Here's a question for you. Do you think that they won't bring them back as prominently as they were with the Netflix series because they already have that existing property?
I think they're going to use that Netflix series as part of their canon for sure. I feel like it's going to be like, it might be the introduction of Spider-Man situation. Like what he says, like, I've had these powers for 6 months, and when you can do the things that I do, you know, da. And
almost quoted that to the T.
And so I feel like it's going to be like that. It's like, yep, you know these characters. You've had at least 2 seasons of them. You've seen them. You know them.
And they've cross-mentioned or referenced everything, you know, from the Battle of New York. You know, they called it the incident, I think.
So I think it's just a matter of how do you bring them in? Do you give them that solo kind of like platform, whether it's a show or a movie, maybe even a mini series that's like a couple like short episodes, or do you introduce them as a cameo first, like we're talking about, just to kind of be like, so they're there, so they're here, like they're in the MCU. When will we get it? That we'll never know, because Marvel Cinematic Universe just takes forever to introduce people, because, you know, if MCU is releasing, in my honest opinion, if they were releasing like 5 movies a year, first of all, that's a very hard, that's insane. It's an insane feat.
Oh my gosh.
And I know they're doing that pretty much this year, but that's because they're catching up with the pandemic. But I wouldn't want them on a regular basis. I would like if there was no COVID or no pandemic, I wouldn't personally want to see 5 movies a year. Like I was totally fine with the 3 that they did, like one in February, one right before summer, which is like one's at the summer blockbuster, and then the one at the end of the year that's right before the holidays. But then you trickle in a couple series in between them to kind of compensate for the time. Like that's the perfect, like kind of how like what they're doing right now. You know, it's like we have Black Widow, but it's like before that though you had 3 series, 3 amazing like Marvel series. And then it's like okay, well, Loki's done. Oh my God, Black Widow's done. Loki or Black Widow ended after. And then now it's like, oh, cool. What If is in like a month? It's not even like you're waiting 2 months. You're waiting only 3.5, 4 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
For a new Marvel series. And then what's after that? Boom, Eternals.
Shang-Chi.
September. Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi. And then I don't know.
And then Eternals. And then Ms. Marvel and Hawkeye are somewhere in that mix, which I'm still like, what?
I think Hawkeye comes out right before holiday, right at the holiday, right?
Oh my God.
So it's like, I like that because then because with shows, it's not obviously not as like big in Marvel as like a release of a movie premiere, but like you have these shows where it's just like they're interconnecting, like they're doing. It's just like 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 you're never gonna get tired of Marvel content. At least I don't. I know there's probably people who are like, oh my God, like
the fatigue.
There's too much MCU. Like they're all the same. And I'm like,
there's not.
And it's like,
I mean, Falcon and Winter Soldier didn't even actually correlate with anything else, but it helped spawn other things, and then it ended up correlating with Black Widow. You know, so it's kind of like they're interweaving.
I mean, WandaVision.
Yeah, WandaVision was more connected to Loki, and then Falcon Winter Soldier went to Black Widow, and then all of them are converging
and now Loki is literally going to converge into every other movie going forward.
Like
what? Like 10 years ago, this wasn't possible.
No, not even close.
You can't do a multiverse live action.
Exactly.
Like no way. Like
it wouldn't.
a movie studio would have been like, No,
Yeah.
that's the dumbest thing I've ever. We don't have that kind of money.
And now
And now you're like, damn, Marvel's doing it.
they're doing it.
So it's like, I think they do come back.
Yeah.
I don't know. Will it be 3 years from now? To be honest, I don't think so.
I don't think so
No,
either.
I
think
don't
it's,
think so.
I mean,
it's not going to happen anytime soon, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
obviously, Marvel,
Yeah.
they keep things under
Yeah.
wraps. They know what they're
Yeah.
doing.
yeah,
I believe Feige knows when the right time to
to execute.
execute.
I think I don't want to say it because I don't want to get hopes up, but I do think we're gonna get Daredevil by the end of the year. Something.
I wouldn't
if it's
be
just
opposed.
Matt
Yeah,
Murdock.
if
Matt
it was just him and he made like I said, like if he just makes
Yeah.
even it's a 1 to 2 minute cameo,
Yeah.
or if it's just like you bump into the street,
Yeah.
and it's like,
Yeah.
oh,
Well, you've seen that video, right? That somebody made. They kind of seamed it together.
yeah,
Yeah, where it's like it's Peter Parker walking down the street and Matt Murdock, and they sort of brush against each other, and that's it.
yeah.
But again, we still have next year, and She-Hulk is still a thing. Jennifer Walters, who is the cousin of Bruce Banner, Hulk, she is also a lawyer, and she and Matt Murdock collide quite often in the comic books. So that right there,
There's so many seeds
yeah, there's so many
already
seeds.
where it's
Yeah.
you're like maybe.
Jessica.
But I will say, not to stray too far away from
Yeah.
like Jessica Jones, but like the fact that we haven't seen anything, we said this last episode, we haven't seen anything from Spider-Man
Mm-hmm.
at all, is a telltale sign that something huge is happening.
And now that we've said Spider-Man, at least like 6 times, the trailer's going to drop next week.
Yeah. Same thing with Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
You haven't seen any set photo. I haven't seen any set
No.
photos. And I'm usually one that is always stumbling upon them.
Yeah.
And so I'm like,
Well, they did it all in
London.
but they also did it in a soundstage. I'm sure.
Yeah.
That's
I think some parts in Atlanta, but it was mostly in
Yeah.
London.
Yeah.
So it's like you just like you don't know. So
Yeah.
I will say the next year of Marvel movies is going to be insane when it ends with Ant-Man is going to be just all out chaos.
Oh my gosh.
So,
I'm just like face palming now. I'm just like,
yeah,
oh my gosh,
'cause
Quantumania
now that
is right.
Kang is like alive and
Yeah.
well in like the universe, and
Yeah.
then you're bringing
Well, you know what 2 a.m. thought I had?
Oh, what?
Thanks to Kang. I was like, does this mean that there are other Thanoses?
Oh yeah.
Like, do you know about baby Thanos?
Yes, I think I saw that in a
There's
video.
a baby Thanos.
Yeah, I mean there was a Thanos copter, so there was
somebody
a,
punched him.
so there
Somebody punched the baby. I think it was Deadpool.
probably.
Oh my gosh, if they
Oh yeah, Deadpool too. Deadpool is not like
That's too much.
yeah.
Well, not too much.
I
I
mean
don't
yeah,
mean
that
that at all.
video.
But
I mean
oh
yeah,
my
before
gosh.
we
Yeah.
and the yeah get too far away from the subject, but like yeah, like Deadpool with Korg.
Yeah,
I would have
Korg.
never thought I would see that.
Never.
Like Deadpool with an MCU character,
Yeah.
and it's freaking Taika
happening.
Waititi's character.
It's happening.
So it's like, I was just like, okay,
Yeah.
that's real. Ryan Reynolds must be
See,
having
but
like
that right there, that's the kind of stuff. I want.
that's enough interest to be like, that was a 4-minute video. Now
Yeah.
you're like, okay, like
Yeah.
what's MCU's Deadpool movie
Yeah.
gonna look like?
Yeah.
And it's gonna be so ridiculous.
And so great.
And I think
And I hope he punches baby Thanos in the face.
it might be.
It might
what
be
if
that.
What if it's just Deadpool hopping different multiverses?
Well, there is a title.
Different.
It's called Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe.
What if it's just that? What if
What if?
Deadpool's like,
What
ooh,
if?
What if Deadpool becomes friends with Spider-Man and is like, yo, I'm gonna hop different timelines, dude, and I'm just gonna like.
Team Red. Are you not familiar with Team Red?
No, I'm not.
Oh my god.
But I know how close, like,
Team Red.
I know how close
Wade is in
Deadpool-
love with Peter Parker.
Yeah,
Well, not even
okay.
Peter Parker. He's in love with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Team Red is literally Deadpool, Daredevil, and Spider-Man. And they're like the
yeah.
homies trio.
Oh yeah,
Trio.
yeah.
Team Red.
I'd pay good money just to see Tom Holland and Ryan Reynolds just interact.
Oh my god.
You never know.
Yeah.
I feel like Deadpool could also be that character that, like, even though he'll get his solo movie in MCU.
Yeah.
But I also feel that if you paid Ryan Reynolds enough money to just do a 2-minute cameo, he'd do it.
Do it.
Yeah.
He would do it.
And it'd be like-
Proposition properly, he would
And
do
just like talk smack to anyone who's on screen and be like, that's crazy. Like, I got paid $1 million to do this.
it. Yeah.
what about you? Type of thing. He's like, all right, well, I'm going to cash my check. I'm going to go. I got to go to Feige's office type stuff.
Yikes.
Yeah. So anything is possible, which is great. I love I love not knowing, even though I'll keep up with the stuff. Like I love being like, they surprised me again.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's what makes it great.
Yeah.
Because there are so many possibilities and so many presumptions and assumptions that can be made, but nobody knows except for the people that are in that room.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Feige
how
has
anybody
all
comes
the
back.
aces up his sleeve.
Oh, yeah,
and
totally.
he knows that no one, he knows that no one knows.
Amazing.
So yeah.
So anyway, thanks for listening, guys.
Oh yeah. Well, this was a fun one.
Yeah, and before I forget, props to our We Are Groot salute Patreon patrons. Joe Liz, Ed, Andrew, Robin, Claire, Melanie, Jenny. Thank you for your
yeah.
contributions. Be sure to follow us on social at STRKCNTRST. If you like what you hear, you want to support the show for the nth time this episode, please become a Patreon patron. And yeah, guess we'll see you. Oh, you know what? We don't have a set episode, but you know what? I'm going to go ahead and put it out there. I think the next episode
Okay.
should be Black Panther.
Let's do it.
We're going to do it.
Let's
It's going to
do
be
it.
tough, but we're going to do it.
I know.
Hold in those
Should be a
tears.
good one. Yeah. But yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Thank you once again. Bye.
Bye.
Murdoch,
I need to leave now.
if you grab me like that again, I'll punch you so hard you see.